All righty. So we're going to dive right in. Our first question is for the entire panel. And I'm sure everyone, mothers, women, entrepreneurs are dying to hear this answer. How has your idea of work-life balance evolved over time, and what does it mean to you now?
I'm still figuring it out, so I'm going to defer. You want us to use this? Really? Such a loud mouth. I actually think we should let Jamie start on this one, just because that's so much of what our book's about, and then we can just share it. Yeah. The question's, how has our perspective on work-life balance evolved?
Yes, over time, and what does it mean to you now?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really important to me now. Obviously, I wrote the book about it, but it definitely has evolved. When I first started out in business on my own, I was young. I was single, 22-year-old, so I didn't have kids yet. And I was just like all in. I had these big dreams, big goals. And I was like first in the office, last to leave, just, grinding it out. And I would say stupid things like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Or, like, if it's going to get done right, I got to do it myself. And I would be in the office so late, just trying to wrap everything up for the day. And so I didn't really have a lot of balance. But then you get married and you're like, okay, I got to make compromises. I got to make adjustments here. And, I remember sometimes forgetting to eat in the office because I wasn't taking care of me. But then when you have kids, like, you can't forget to feed them, right? So you have to grow as a person. But, the book is a lot of great mentors and things I've learned over the years, but it's also a lot of trial and error. It was because I didn't have that balance in the beginning that I made mistakes. It cost me I had some health challenges. I remember after having my third child, I got sick. They said I had lupus, an incurable autoimmune disease. And I just thought at first, all these aches and pains were because I'm a busy mom and I'm working so hard and probably not getting enough sleep. But then a patch of hair, probably about that big. Remember that, Dana, was like this, fell completely out in 4 days. I just completely bald patch. And I freaked out, of course, and went to the doctor the next day and did tons of vials of blood. And they said, oh, you have this incurable disease, take this medication for the rest of your life. And oh, by the way, you can't have any more kids because the medication will hurt that fetus and it's going to hurt your eyes. It's going to ruin your eyes. And I thought, well, now I'd been in business and successful long enough now to understand you don't listen to negative people. And that just sounded really dismal. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to do it my way. So I set a goal for 18 months to be completely, healthy and have my energy back. But it was hard. I mean, it was a really tough time. I remember laying on the couch downstairs and just crying because I didn't have enough energy to walk up the stairs when my two oldest were arguing about a toy. And I just felt like such a bad mom. And I think that adversity, like most adversities, it was a gift. I probably had, the message a few times that I needed to slow it down. I needed to have some balance. I needed to take care of me. And I wasn't listening to it. And God kind of just hit me over the head with like, no, you're going to learn this. And I did. I learned self-care. And I think in balance to me is like, faith and family need to come first. Your marriage, if you are married, needs to come, and then the kids, and then everything else. So before it was, I would take care of everything that happened throughout the day, anything that was thrown at me, all the fires that you have to put out, all the kids stuff, all the chaos that's going on in the world, you're reacting. And then, of course, the kids have to come next because there's always stuff going on there. And if something's wrong with one of your kids, you're just a mess. And then my poor husband got what was left over of me, poor guy. And then who got nothing was me. So I reversed it to, I had to do my self-care and realize that it's not being selfish. It's not being, lazy or something to put me first. And I just believe if you're empty, if you're drained, if you're, burnt out, how can you feel others if you're empty? And so the self-care, and then the next was my marriage, and then the kids, and then everything else. But in all those other areas, I became more productive. It's going to be hard for you to be patient with your kids if you're all burnt out, right? Or short with your husband, or even in business, you're going to have brain fog. You're not going to have clarity to receive inspiration or good ideas to take your business to the next level. So now, like I said, that's how it goes. Your self-care has to come in there, figure out what you need for mental and physical wellness. And and I just plan it all in first. And if I can get all the family stuff and the important stuff in first, then I can be a maniac if I want and chase whatever goals or dreams I want, because I can fill it in, but I never burn out. And I never have that mommy guilt or whatever of, am I spending enough time with my kids, or am I in the office too much, or vice versa? So I think if you neglect those other areas for too long, any of them, you could be off balance in either direction. If it's the health, your body's going to start to fight back, right? Like it did for me. If it's your marriage, then that's going to be the disaster too, right? So happy and strong just means, you can chase your wildest dreams and go after whatever it is, but have strong family, strong marriage, strong in your faith, a strong financial foundation. I saw so many people during COVID just fall apart, people that were making millions and it's gone. And we've all known people that are super successful, but they're still unfulfilled, right? And so I think the balance is really an important piece.
I don't know how I'm supposed to answer after that.
And really quickly, I just want to make sure that everybody caught that, because she gave us a really, really valuable tool. She said that she fills in her family time first, and then everything else goes around that. So I think a lot of the time we carry such a guilt because we're like trying to spread ourselves so thin, and we're planning here and we're planning there and trying to figure everything out. And then we don't have time for our family. But if that comes first, that doesn't happen. So I hope everybody caught that.
Awesome. Well, I would say that kind of similarly to Jamie, when I first started in business, I didn't have children and I wasn't married yet. So I didn't really think about work-life balance. Like it just wasn't something that was on my radar. And then things start getting added to your plate. Like I had one baby, and then two babies, and then three babies. Yeah, it was. And then my business grew and expanded, and our organization got bigger. And so the demand, I think where it kind of fell apart was after my third baby as well. And we had just had, yeah, it's true. So it's it was after the third, and we just had a really difficult loss in our family, and just had our third, just bought our house, like right by the beach. And, we were really excited, but I didn't realize that I never took anything off my plate. I just kept adding and kept adding and kept adding. And on the outside, I think it looked like I was doing great, like, wow, she's really doing it, and people would say like, how are you doing it? But on the inside, I was really hurting. And I don't think I really knew that until I was crying almost every day. I was like, oh, I think this is a problem. And I told my husband, like one day, just in tears, like, I need help, or I might go to the insane asylum, like for real. And he was like, okay, like really try, like, what can I take off your plate? And I realized like I really struggled with giving up anything that was on my plate. And I realized that, I ended up in therapy, which is, I think very great to do. It was a huge blessing in my life, because my first session, I cried throughout the whole thing. And at the end, they're like, so do you want to move forward with therapy? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I have to, And so I went once a week. And honestly, it was actually that scheduled in time that was for me. And I even felt guilty about going to therapy. Isn't that weird? Mm-hmm. Like I would tell my therapist, like, I feel like this is so selfish. Like I'm just sitting here talking about myself, And then I realized it was probably the healthiest thing I could have done. And it was through that time when I realized that I had just pretty much all of my value and self-worth was in accomplishments, was in achievements. And so I thought my value came from what other people thought a good mom should do, right? Like a good mom would make her kids lunches, and she would do all these things, and what a good wife would do, and what a good business person would do, or what achievement, constantly winning looked like, And I realized that my value and worth just came in who I was and not what I did. And it took I still learn that every day, and I think that now work-life balance to me is taking space, like Jamie said, for for myself so that I can get clear. Cause usually I realize that I'm pretty tuned in, like, and I realized that at any moment, this is kind of was a big eye opener for me. I think a lot of times we think of what we want our dream life to look like, and it's pushed out 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And all of a sudden I started thinking, like, what does my dream life look like today? Like, what does that look like today? And I started realizing, like, I would like to be home and I would like to have dinner with my family. That's like a basic thing, but I realized, like, guess what? I can do that right now, and I can schedule out time. And there are certain evenings where I'm like, oh, this is an important evening for me to prioritize business. But these other evenings, I prioritize being home for dinner. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of just realizing that I'm in charge of my life. Yeah. Nobody else, not what anybody else thinks a good mom or a good businesswoman or achiever does, but me. And this is the only life I got. So I might as well just start living it the way that I really want to right now, and that it will work out. It's going to work out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
That was so good. Yes. Really quickly.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I loved about what you said is that you're in control. And I think for a lot of people, especially, the generation that's coming up, we're so programmed to respond and also to copy kind of what our parents did. So it's like, especially in the Hispanic community, we're like, okay, homemakers and things like that. And it's very hard for people to take that next step and say, like, I'm in control. I don't have to deal with the pressures of society and things like that. So what you said was very, very powerful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, so good. So I'm very similar to both Jamie and Johanna and Dana, whatever she's going to say, because I learned from all of them. So everything they're saying, they taught me. And so when I first started in business, like I've always been much like Johanna, like I just wanted to go. Cause then I didn't have to slow down and think about like what I really needed to think about, like therapy and all those things and my mental health. And so I would go. And Dana, I don't know if you remember, but I had an event just like this, maybe about, 3 years ago. And it was like hundreds of people. And I was so excited. And then Dana called me. She's like, congratulations. You had such a big event. And I just started crying. I was like, I miss my kids. Like, I miss them so much. And she's like, go be with them. And I'm like, I can't, because the day after, like, if some of you guys are intrigued by the business, you want to know more, we have to meet with you. We have to talk to you and teach you money and all these things. And I'm like, I can't do it right now. And she's like, stop it. You need the minute you feel like deprived. Yes. And in this case, it was business, but for you guys, it could be anything. The minute you feel like you're depriving yourself of something, you begin to resent the other side of it. So she's like, you're going to start to resent the business if you don't go to be with your kids. So then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go be with my kids. So then I went to be with my kids and I was like, I need to go work. Oh my gosh. And so then she's like, okay, we'll go work. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, dang it. And I wish I could have read this book 3 years ago. It would have been so helpful. But like, do you guys ever feel like that? Or am I alone? Please don't tell me I'm alone. Okay. So then I started like, it was a journey for sure. And I was like, I can't wait till the day where I don't have to work and I don't have to miss dinners, or I can't wait to the day where I can go to my daughter's softball games, and I can't wait. And then finally, one of my mentors, Ed, I just really struggle with mom guilt. That's something I really struggle with. And he was like, so what if you max out your business? What if you are intentional with your business while you're there and you max it out? And I was like, okay, but I miss my kids. And he's like, well, then when you're with your kids, you max out being with your kids and you give it all you got. And the more you give one area, the better everything else gets. So sometimes we tend to think, okay, well, if I give my business all I got, or if I give my health all I got, or if I give whatever, my family or sports or school, if I give it all I got, then all these areas have to suffer. And that's actually not really true if you stop and think about it, because the better you're doing in your health, shout out to Johanna's dad, Dr. Carrico, who helped me feel so much better. The better I'm doing in my health, like the more present I am with my kids. And the more present I am with my kids, I'm like, we got so much quality time. I'm going to go work. And then I work and I'm focused and I'm there. And then I can go be a softball mom and the softball team mom and do all these things and be present in my church and go to church and feel good and have energy. And still, I don't feel guilty anymore to spend time alone, but because I decided that when I'm here, I'm going to be here. And so I'm thinking about my kids right now, just because this is happening. But prior to that, I'm like, okay, I'm here. We already planned a date tomorrow. I'm going to pick them up from school. We're going to go have lunch. We're going to go to Target. It's going to be so much fun. And then we have the rest of our weekend planned. And I have a couple appointments in between. And so I just got really good at scheduling things, letting go of the guilt and being present where I'm at. And that's hard. And so you have to work at it. Self-awareness, of course, is required. So I would just encourage you guys to whatever it is you guys are doing, being present, having a plan, being intentional, not focusing on the next thing, focusing, okay, what's my purpose here right now? What am I trying to achieve here? How can I serve here? And then going to the next thing, and you do it all with grace, and then you feel good. So.
And yes, shout out to your dad, Johanna, because now she texts everyone, I feel so good.
Such a difference. I'm going to keep it really quick because everything's been said, but just a couple of tips. Number one, Jamie said it early on. I'll never forget when I reached the point that Johanna described, where I felt like I was going to go crazy a little bit and trying to pretend like I wasn't, and everybody knew I was. Doesn't serve anybody, right? And we went on a Hawaii trip and I was stressed out in Hawaii. People were actually worried about me. And the minute we get back, Jamie calls me. She goes, let's go to lunch. And we went to go sit and have a smoothie. Do you remember that, Jamie? And she was like, look, and she gave me the beauty of having a mentor that has gone down that path before you. Man, don't take that for granted ever. People make sacrifices and decisions and go through that fire a little bit to get to a point where they've mastered it. And that's why Jamie's our hero, because she's paved the way, literally. I remember she said these words to me. She said, if Dana's okay, everyone else is okay. I'm like, that's true. I've heard it in like happy wife, happy life, right? That's what I keep telling my husband, but she's right. Like, we're kind of martyrs a little bit sometimes. We're important to everybody else has to be taken care of, but I'm so exhausted. I remember complaining to my husband once. He's like, you didn't have to say yes to everything. So the first thing is, if you're okay, everybody else around you is okay. We're sort of, if we are, men have a very critical role in the family unit. We as women have a very critical role, and we got to know that, right? We got to take care of ourselves to be in that role, per Jamie's point. The other thing she did is she got me a no button. Actually, I don't know if it was her, but it was a no button. I needed to say no. So everybody's personalities, there's a lot of different personalities in this room, and some have harder time saying no, and some have a harder time having boundaries than others, right? So you have to be very self-aware of what that is. I had a very difficult time having boundaries, and I gave a whole lot to myself to things that weren't necessarily even fruitful for me. And Jamie had to point that out, but I did get a no button. Kind of sad. But if I had a hard time saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't go run this school board meeting, or I'm sorry, I can't run this fundraiser, I'm sorry, I can't take if I had a hard time saying no, I just pushed that darn thing until I got some courage, right? But the point is, ladies, say no. No one to say no, right? That's the only way we can have this balance that we talk about, which, by the way, is kind of an abstract concept, right? Just in the attempt to gain balance, you will be happier.
Yeah.
And the last thing Jenna said is just being present in whatever moment you're in. Stop thinking about everything else and just be in that moment, right? That gives you happiness too.
Yes.
Everybody wants that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was so good. I want to point out the fact that she talked about mentorship, because had she not had a mentor, she probably wouldn't, or you would have, but it wouldn't have been so easy to set those boundaries. So I love that you shared that. This next question is for Jenna. You're an incredible example of being coachable to your mentors, and as a result, you're constantly and consistently unlocking new levels of success. Our question to you is, what did it take for you to put your trust in the hands of your mentors and truly believe that they could guide you to your goals?
Good question. So, mentors are so powerful. So I just want to point something out. You know how Dana just said that Jamie said to her, if Dana is good, everybody's good. But if Dana's not good, it's a big issue. Well, Dana has told me before, when Jenna's good, everybody's good. But if Jenna's not good, it's a big issue. And thank God that Dana's so present for me, which is like so amazing. Where else do you get a mentor like that? Like this is not real life, really. Seriously, like raise your hand if you've ever had a mentor outside of this business that cares for you the way Dana clearly cares for me. Seriously, right? Well, unless you're on my team, you should raise your hand.
You said
I didn't see
outside of the
Rachel's hand
business.
go up. Did your hand go up?
No, you said outside of the business.
Okay, I did say that. But it's so crucial to seeing, like, you know, and I had always heard this saying, you know, I had always heard, like, it's since evolved for me. I used to think if you see a millionaire and you want to be a millionaire, what did you do and how do I do it? And now that has evolved to me. If you see somebody being happy and strong, you know, that's what I want to follow. But we are on a journey. I've grown a lot. And I saw Jamie and I saw Dana, and even Johanna has mentored me so much and just been a picture perfect example. And I've seen these things and I'm like, okay, I want what they all have. Like this is what I want. I want to have a thriving, successful business, be very present in my church, in my relationship, in my purpose, in my marriage, with my kids. That's what I want. But I also want to make a lot of money while I do it. And that's what they all three did. So I'm like, I'm going to do what they do. And if I have a problem and I take it to them, I'm pretty certain they're going to give me the right advice because they've been there. And so sometimes that takes humility, because I used to think like, well, I know better. I know best. Like, I know when I should be with my kids. I know what I should do. Like, I'm not going to listen to that. And when I see them, I'm like, okay, this actually is not working my way. So I think the sooner you can say, like, my way is probably not the best way, and I'm going to find somebody who has what I want. And you know what they say, if someone doesn't have what you want, do not listen to them. So what I'm telling you does not mean go listen to like your negative friend. That's just like, you know, you have to be very intentional about who you let speak life into you, because like the wrong person, think about it like this. I don't know where I heard this recently, but if there's 5 of us and 4 of us are going out drinking and we're going to the bar and we're staying out late, like the 5th one's eventually going to follow suit. Like, it's just what happens. Or if 4 of us, this is a bad example, but I heard it somewhere, we're all doing drugs and the 5th one's just there. Is the 5th one going to eventually try it? Probably. Even, you know, like, you're going to pick up. So imagine you're around 4 or 5 people that are successful, that are happy, that are strong, that are building a thriving business, that are present with their kids, that are having all these things and philanthropy and dream life and happy and rich and friendships and experiences. That's what I want. So I'm going to be around people like that. So I would challenge you guys to like really assess your circle. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. It doesn't. And you have to make some changes and say like, okay, this is what I need to fix. This is how I'm going to do it. And then you get around the right people, because I can say without Dana, without Jamie, even without Johanna, I probably would have still been like trying to figure it out. Not that I'm not, but dealing with things that I never have to deal with, which is why you should read the book. Cause there's gonna be a lot in there that's going to help you just learn quickly. And so this is how you can get access to Jamie and the way she thinks. So mentors are so important.
Absolutely. And there's a chapter in the book, and I can't remember which one it is, but there's a paragraph that talks about being coachable, or letting your mentor know that you're coachable at the speed of instruction. So once you get that mentor, don't waste their time. Yeah. Right. So yes, like Jenna said, if you have not got the book, make sure you don't leave without it. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm like, okay, Johanna. Oh, good times. Okay. Next question is for Johanna. You're living proof that your goals and dreams don't have to cost you your love and happiness. Our question to you is, how do you prioritize your home life so that the mom guilt does not take over?
Good question. How do you know it doesn't take over? I'm just kidding. I actually have struggled with mom guilt plenty of times. And I think I've just come to realize that a lot of times guilt is because I'm worried of what other people will think. Like, other people are going to think I work too much. Other people are going to think this is ridiculous, but I'm going to just share it. Because why not? Right? Like, it's so embarrassing. But like, I've even thought sometimes like, oh, in my story, I shared too, like, I'm working so much, I need to show something like I have my kids too. That actually has gone through my brain. Like, I need to show like, oh, I'm at the park with my kids, like, see, I'm a good mom too. And And I'm literally doing it just so other people see, even though like I go to the park with my kids all the time. Yeah. Like I go to the park all the time. I'm not going there to show people, but like, I feel like I should show people so they know it, you know? And I'm like, that is so dumb. Like that is just proof that I really still care what people think, which is ridiculous. And honestly, it was probably my oldest daughter that said something to me that I think about, you know, whenever I go through this kind of stuff, whenever I feel that feeling of guilt. We were going to see Mamma Mia, and I didn't realize it was a PG-13 movie. And I think she was like 9 at the time. And I was just like, this is so fun. It's like a musical, like a girl's musical, you know? And I didn't realize until I watched it, like, oh, they're talking about like more advanced things. But I think she was probably still too young to really know what was going on. But so on the way there, we get there and I've like already bought tickets and we get in line. I'm like, oh, this is PG-13. You're 9. She's like, it's okay, you know? And I was like, don't tell anyone that I took you or they're going to think I'm a bad mom. And like, I just said it like off the cuff. And then literally 5 minutes later, we're like in line to get some like food. And she's like, Mom, why would you say that? And I was like, what? She's like, why would you say like people are going to think you're a bad mom? Like if I know you're a good mom and you know you're a good mom, what does it matter what anybody else thinks? Like, you're right. You teach me so much, you know? And it's just true. Like, it doesn't matter. It's about like you and your family and your kids, and you check in, you're like, you're good, I'm good. And like, your kids will tell you, like, my kids will say like, I need you to snuggle me. And I'm like, I want to snuggle you, you know? And so I realized too, that so much of it is that quality time. Like with my 2-year-old, if I spend 30 minutes with her at the park and I'm looking at her the whole time and I'm watching her down the slide and, you know, like really paying attention. It's like Jenna said, being present in that moment and not, you know, texting it every minute, but I'm really there with her. And then we ride our bike back. It's like, that was like enough to fill her cup and mine, you know, and it doesn't mean that I don't know. And I also realized that so much of my life is not just staring and watching my kids. It's setting an example. And then my kids are watching everything that I do. And that, guess what? In this world, you've got to work and you've got to provide and serve it to be fulfilled, serve. And I want them to see a life of serving and contributing to the lives of other people. I want them to see persevering. Like if they don't see that in me in the home, where the heck are they going to learn that? You know? And so explaining to them why I'm going to work. And I don't know why this helped me a lot, but for some reason, I think when you're in business, there's no like punch in, punch out, right? So there's no like off and on. It's kind of can be all the time. But something that really I observed, Jamie do this a lot, where like you can be a mom and be a wife and be in business, and it kind of can all coexist at the same time, right? They all go together. And so you can be, you know, you could have a child who's sick and you're holding them and your client calls and you could still pick up and answer their question. And you're being a business person and a mom at the same time, right? You can be on a date night and people say, don't talk about business on a date night. Like, I love talking about business on my date nights. Like it fires us up. Like we talk about our dreams and where we're going. Like it could be a great relationship and business at the same time, you know? And so I just realized it can like coincide. And so how I prioritize my home life is I started thinking about what matters to me in the home. Like, what do I want to be there for? There are certain things. I'm not at every dance practice. I'm not on the PTA, but I want to be there for every dance competition. Yeah. My parents weren't at my dance competitions. I was the middle of 5 kids and my parents were really busy. And I cared about that as a kid. So I just put it in my schedule, and they have about 5 competitions a year. So I just make sure I'm at those 5. And I'm front row and I watch every single one, and I invite the whole family to come see it. And if they can't come, and if there were something that came up, because I'm at the majority of them, if there was one I couldn't attend, they'd be okay with that. Yeah. I'm not at every practice. I'm not at, you know, but that to me was like, that was important. So I put in my schedule, like I said, having dinner with my kids, you know, 4 nights out of the week, marking those off, you know, and just what are the things that matter to you as a parent, as a business person, as a spouse, as an individual. Maybe you're not married or any of those things, but for you, you want to be a part of serving in some capacity, and you just mark it off. And then like Jamie said, like you prioritize, and then everything else just kind of fits in. Does that help? Does that
yes. And Actually, yes. It gave a lot of perspective too, because I think as parents, we're so focused on my son or my daughter doesn't think I'm a good mom, and you're trying your best and you're like trying to catch up and do all these things, but they're looking up at you and saying, you're so amazing. My mom's my hero. It's so crazy. They really do teach us so much throughout the day. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Next question is for Jamie. You've officially written a #1 best-selling book. That has inspired thousands across the nation. The first chapter, in my opinion, is the best chapter because it talks so much about the adversity that you've had to overcome and how you really didn't let that become your identity. So our question to you is, how did you keep your adversities from becoming your identity? And what are some things that fueled your vision?
Yeah. Well, adversity is something that none of us can avoid. It's kind of part of life. There's none of us are going to ever avoid, there's going to be loss. There's going to be heartache. There's going to be harder adversities like a betrayal of, someone that you love, or a death of a child, even like the really, really hard things. And so that's part of life. We're here to really have these experiences to grow. And when we're in the middle of an adversity, we're like, why me? It's like, we're always focused on the problem. We're always focused on, we're at our low. And so, yeah, a lot of hard things happened when I was younger. A lot of hard things happened when I was in business. A lot of hard things happened after I was in business and successful. And I remember one time teaching this class, and it was like a Sunday school class. And I gave out yellow Starbursts. Who likes yellow Starbursts? Like, nobody likes yellow Starbursts. They're gross, right? Like, so why do they even put them in there? So I'm like, I brought treats today, and I handed them out, and the bowl went around, and it came back, and I handed it again and made them keep taking it. And I said, everybody wants the red Starburst or the pink Starburst, and we, don't want the yellow ones. But why are they in there? Well, we need the bad to appreciate the good, and we need the bad for our growth. And so all that adversity is for our good. Now, growing up, I looked at it and I said, well, I'm not going to do what they just did, to me or around me or these things. But as it would happen, it made me tougher. As a child, it made me more independent. It made me understand what I don't want. I watched, all the stuff that went on in my household, and I said, I don't want that. I want a house that has peace, and I want a house that has, not the fighting and not the, addictions and those things. And so it really helped me clarify in my mind what I don't want. I didn't know what I wanted yet, but I knew what I didn't want. And then as I started to get exposed to great leaders, mentors, other people that knew what they wanted, it helped me to get a little bit more clarity. But adversity still came. I had a business partner that lied and stole and did different things, and it was horrible. I had my best person in my business was a male that was a womanizer, it was getting pretty ugly, that it wasn't anything that was like we knew what was actually happening, but we knew something was happening, and I had to let go my best guy. And at the time it was, and financially, I had to make a decision to do what was right for our business and take a financial loss in a big way. So there's lots of different things that happen. And then that sickness that I had, they said, oh, it's incurable, and that was for my good. I needed that to get that other piece of my life in order. And I set a goal, 18 months. And in 18 months, it got worse before it got better. It really did. It was like I started to clean house and stir up dust, and it was bad. And I lost like 30 pounds. My eyes were sunken in. My bones were sticking out. Again, I couldn't even walk up half of the stairs. And it got just so bad. But that was for my good. I needed to learn that lesson. And then 18 months later, I was completely autoimmune free, have been healthy for 11 years now, no issues. So for me, I just believe that there's like that better version of you, that ideal life. There's the guy or gal, let's say the gal that is, and the gal that's meant to be. And to get from here to here, it's really not a smooth line. And it's not even just an uphill thing. It's like this, right? And so you have to learn to climb from peak to peak through the valleys. And so when you're going through these tough things, I know it's hard to say thank you for this adversity, this gift. Oprah Winfrey said, when you can learn to say thank you for your hardest things, that's when you're really going to grow. And I thought about that. Like, she's gone through some hard things, like harder than me, but right. And can we say thank you for these things? Can we be in gratitude during those times? That's a hard thing to do. But I can realize that every adversity, every single adversity, no matter how hard, has within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. If and only if you look for it. So I probably had some adversity that I should have learned that lesson, and I was ignoring it, and it just came around again, just like the yellow starburst. It keeps coming around until you learn that lesson. So I think that all adversities for are good, and that we can say, even if it is, like I said, a loss, what's the seed in this? What's the benefit to help me grow into that person? You know, all those things that I went through help me grow into the leader and the person that I can lift others. And I can help them through their things. The whole book came about. I didn't want to write a book. 4 different people asked me to write a book with them in the last, I don't know, probably 8 years. And I said, no, I'm focused on my business. I don't want anything to do with that. No, thank you. I don't need to do all that drama. And then during COVID, I have like 6,000 people that I'm mentoring at that time. And it seemed like every single one of them was in their own little form of depression. Yeah. There's so much adversity. This big adversity also, we see now, came with a lot of opportunity for people. But in the middle of it, they were all crying to me every day. And I'm just soaking up all this negativity every single day. And something just kept weighing on my heart and my mind that I needed to write this book. And then people kept calling me. There was like 5 different people said, you should write a book. You should write a book. Like, shut up. Stop. Don't call me again. And so I sat down one day and I kind of started writing this journal. And I was like, if I was to write a book, what would I, and then like literally all these, John Maxwell, all these great people started coming into my life. And it actually became, it was very easy. My mom even called and she said, hey, I'm bored in quarantine. I'm coming out. I'll watch the kids. I'll do the pickups, the drop-offs, and the cooking. So if you have any other project you want to take on right now. Yeah, it was crazy how it kind of just all came together. But that's what it was. Like this, I saw these people just hurting. And people that were successful, boom, just down, completely wiped out. And they just didn't have that strong foundation. And I don't know. So I just wanted to help people that way. But I know that without the adversity, there's no growth. Yeah, right. It's like lifting weights. You need the pain to get the gain, right? And so it is a blessing. So I don't know. I kept going through the adversity because I learned to not focus on where you're at. That's, most people don't have a clear vision. They don't have that clarity of what's next in their life. If you do have goals, you probably don't have them written down. You probably don't have them in front of you every day. You probably don't have pictures up. You probably don't have them on the steering wheel of your car, in the mirror where you do your makeup like I did. I had it in front of me constantly. My little sister's back in Montana in that trailer, digging through couch cushions to find quarters to buy milk for the babies. I had all that in front of me every day. Every time I would go into an appointment, I kept all my vision of where I was going and my passion fueled so that when things got hard, I didn't stop. I wanted to quit 1,000 times, but I wasn't going to quit on them. Does that make sense? So most people don't have that. They don't, if they do have goals, like I said, they don't keep it in front of them. They don't have clarity. I like literally could push a button, a play button in my mind. And, you know, the day I'm going to retire my dad and what the weather was like outside, like so much clarity. Clarity is your best friend when you're trying to achieve anything in life. Great marriage, great relationships with your teenage daughter, you know, whatever it may be, that's hard for you. Right. So most people don't have that. And so they're just drifting. And this year looks a lot like last year, looks a lot like the year before, just drifting. And so lack of progression is a big key. Like it causes discontent. One of the keys to happiness is growing. getting closer to something new, something better, a better version of you. So by keeping the vision in front of you, instead of when the problem comes up, when all the news and the crap comes on and the chaos that's going on in the world, instead of the problem being right here and that's all you can see, it's like you're running this marathon and you can see the finish line now, instead of it being around the corner, out of sight. Now it's in front of you. And so every hurdle that you hit, you're like, this sucks, right? Why me? Well, how am I going to get around this one? Maybe I need to reach out to a mentor for this one to be dragging me around it or crawling under it. Maybe I'm not running this time, I'm walking, but you have that clarity. So that's the vision, I think, is the clarity of the vision, clearly defined goals written out. And you don't have to have the perfect action steps. You don't have to have your game plan. You just have to keep yourself on fire of being hopeful of what's next instead of, all the adversity coming at you every time.
Yeah. Wow. That was so good. I was like this the whole time. I wish I had a pen. I hope somebody was taking notes on that one. But it's so true because COVID taught us a lot. It really opened our eyes to figure out what's important to us, whether it be, time with our family or even just the careers that we were in. Was it fulfilling enough? So thank you so much for writing this book. I really do believe that it has all the secrets in there. Not secrets anymore though, right? Okay, next question is for Dana. Wait, did I already ask you this?
No.
Okay. You've been able to fulfill your purpose by selflessly coaching so many to financial freedom through education and mentorship. Our question to you is, at what point did you realize your corporate job was no longer serving you?
Okay, great question. I want to say just very quickly how grateful I am that I realized that at any point, because when Jamie was talking, I just remember thinking I think when we go through adversity and we're supposed to look at it the way Jamie just so eloquently described, where it's like, okay, what can I do differently to change it instead of being a victim? I think that has so much to do with your environment, the people that you're around. If you don't have mentors, I think we allow not just negativity, but mediocrity to justify sort of how we respond in our behavior. And I feel like I would be in that situation because you don't know what you don't know, right? It's not like I would be aware of that. I would just sort of be in that. And so I'm so grateful for Jamie in particular, but just for the environment, right? It does take a village. And the other thing I want to point out is that our kids, let's be clear, my kids and Jamie's kids have grown up together, and they're better for it. You saw that picture I sent, right? That's just one of many. They're going to Hawaii, little babies. My kids grew up with Ed, my Let's kids. They're better for it. Johanna and Jenna's kids are growing up together. They're better for it. So, right, they just fell in love with each other in Hawaii. So it takes a village, but the right village. And so I'm so glad at one point, whether it was God or it was my conscious awareness, I don't think it was that. I think it was just me following my path, but that I'm not in that environment anymore. It wasn't a bad environment, but it wasn't a good environment. So your question, there was a lot of little things that happened when I was in a corporate job, and it's been a long time. I've been retired from corporate America for a long time, right? Because I was in this business, and that's a lot thanks to my husband, right? He let me start full time and let me sort of go through the struggle that I needed to go through. And now we're in business together and it's great, but I can just talk about a couple of things. I'll never forget when I got promoted. I used to work at a very large company, great company. I started off hourly. They were going through a class action lawsuit. There was a lot of overtime on the table, and I was doubling my income just on overtime. I'm like, this is cool. And then of course they're like, oh, look at that dum-dum working 12 hours a day. Let's promote her to management. But I appreciated it. I wasn't cynical. I took advantage of the opportunity, but I did go from hourly to salary. Has anybody ever gone from hourly to salary after working overtime? You're like, cut my salary in half, right? I was making half the money, half the pay because I was on salary. I was exempt. I could take a longer lunch, but I lost a whole lot of money. I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't seem right, but I guess I'll learn, right? And I started working up a little bit. And then I started to see things very clearly beyond the position I was in, executive level. And thank God I was able to see what I saw, right? They just weren't living the life that I wanted. And I didn't know this existed. Like Jamie, I just didn't know that wasn't what I wanted. They weren't making that much money to sacrifice as much as they were sacrificing to be these top corporate level executives. It's one thing to be an executive of your own firm. It's another one to be an executive of a corporation, right? So corporate America is great. It feeds people's families. There's a lot of great jobs and opportunities out there, a lot of fulfilling careers. I just wasn't in it. And then, I met my husband there. He was not my boss. Maybe maybe that's why I got promoted. He was a boss. He wasn't my boss. Anyways, moving on, Dana. But I remember he's not 8 years older than me, and he worked he's he works his tail off and he was so ready for a promotion. He had so deserved it. And I'll never forget when it was given to a friend of the stuff you hear about all the time. And I just didn't want to be cynical. I'm like, no, maybe she deserved it. But I saw these things. I felt these things. I'm like, okay. So I knew I had to get out. Oh, it didn't hurt that they laid me off, right? By the way. So that's really how I got out of corporate America. But so my husband and I got offered a job with the same company to go to Jackson, not Wyoming, Florida. Jacksonville, Florida, I believe it was. Not a place that we wanted to live. We went out there, we saw it, we were offered great salaries. No, we wanted to stay here. So we both lost our job the same month. Our whole division got let go. They offered us something we weren't going to take. So we had to both start over. And that was a blessing, right? That was just a great opportunity. And that's when I found this business. Right? Seriously. But you don't know it at the time. I mean, again, I was spirited and coachable and ignorance on fire, and I wasn't worried about much. I was just like, what's next? What's next? Right? Got jaded later a little bit. Right. But I think that's my point. Like, the environment you're in creates the way you think. Right. I'm just grateful that I was still very spirited and young and impressionable enough to allow Jamie to mentor me. That's a blessing, right? Because that was sort of by accident. But I just saw a lot of lack of leadership and a lot of just poor habits and people not living a life that I wanted. And that was kind of obvious. If you look at the company you're working for those of you that do, and you look up that ladder where you're going, hopefully you're going somewhere, right? You have some ambition there. Do I want to live like them? And that answer was unequivocally no, all the time. And so I knew I had to make a shift, but most people don't. Most people say, you know what, this is only temporary. I'm going to live my dream in a little bit. I'm only going to stay here for a little bit. I'm only going to pay my bills, get out of debt, and then I'm going to move on. But they don't. There's a very thin line, right? There's that little teeny subtle shift where they go from spirited and excited and temporary to this is my life. And now I'm just mad about it. Right. And so whether it's, we want to get to people earlier, right? When they're willing and they don't have so much resistance, but my gosh, it really does determine the rest of their life. So it was a few things that were very clear. I'm just grateful that I made that decision.
It really is such a fine line, because when your bills are getting paid, you have that contentness and you're not entirely dissatisfied, but you're also not fulfilled.
Yeah, it's good as the enemy of great. It really is.
So it is a very, very fine line. And then, but what happens is that when you surround yourself with people with big vision and who empower you, your vision gets stretched. We talk about this a lot. And then it's so hard to go back. I was telling Jenna, I'm like, it's just not it. Like I was just exposed to a whole different world. And yeah. And so it is a very fine line. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. So our last question is for the entire panel. And it is, if you could travel back to a time where you felt so overwhelmed that you just wanted to give up and quit on your dreams, what would you look yourself in the eye and say to your past self?
I'll go first. Well, the only reason I'll say I'll go first is because this was like 3 months ago for me. I'm not joking, but I had Dr. Carrico healed me. So I don't know what I would say to myself. Well, I'll tell you what I would say to myself. I was going through a really rough time. I had got COVID. I was just not myself. Like, have you guys ever felt like that? We're just like, this is not me. I went to the doctor. This is kind of personal, but I'll just say it anyways. Like, I went to the doctor and they're like, you're depressed. And I was like, I probably am, but it didn't really sound right. But I was like, and I was like, that doesn't really make sense, but it kind of makes sense because I just don't feel like myself. And I called Jamie and I don't remember. Jamie kept asking me, send me your business plan, send me your business plan. And I was like, okay, later. She must ask me 5 times. And then I was in Target and she's like, you need to send your business plan. I'm like, honestly, I'm depressed. I just don't even have a business plan. I'm like, I don't have one. I'm like, stop asking me. And yeah. And I'm not kidding. This was 3 months. It was the beginning of the year, business plan, January. And I'm like, I'm depressed. I can't do it. And then she's like, no, you need to get this right. She's like, I want you to do something. One, she told me to get my health in order, which again, shout out to Dr. Carrico, changed my entire life. It was all along. It was just, I was eating bad and not working out. So eat good and work out. That's what it was all along. But in the moment, it was very hard for me to just even see that. And so when you're getting down on yourself, it's really, really easy for mediocrity to just set in. Just once it sets in, that's it. And so I would say things like, well, it was fun building a business, but I'm depressed. So, mental health is serious. I just need to lay in bed all day. And you know what, like maybe I will just, I don't really drink, but people around, maybe I'll just go out and drink with them, or I'm just going to sleep in, or I don't like, I started making all these excuses as why a mediocre and average and ordinary life was the life for me, because like things just didn't work out. And this is really not like me, you guys. This is really not like me. And when I was on the phone with Jamie, she told me this: you need to be very clear on what you want. And I was like, I can't even think. I literally, because of brain fog, because of the candida, I couldn't even think of that. Like it was just, and I'm pretty mentally tough. I was like, write it down. I'm like, I can't. And so Jamie told me this. She said, take a piece of paper and write down all these things. If you could do 10 pages or 1 page, just start. And if everything you touch, she said these very words to me, pretend like everything you touch is going to turn to gold by the end of the year. Be very careful about what you write on that piece of paper, because whatever you write on that piece of paper is going to come true at the end of the year. And I was like, okay, I could do that. So it started getting me like going again. And I saw all these things like, okay, I want, whatever. I don't want to read the whole paper to you. I was just like going. And I'm like, I have to feel better if I want these things to harvest. Like I have to feel better. Now, what can I do to feel better? And so my mind started finding these solutions. And I was like, I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm not going to go drink with the people who I don't want to be around. And I'm not going to be in this center of people that are just not serving me. And I'm not going to go to that barbecue, and I'm not going to sleep anymore. Like I'm in control. And so I did the cleanse. It was so amazing. I got healthy, whatever that looks like for you. I got healthy, and I just like kept looking at that list, and like things are starting to happen. I feel so much better. The stuff I wrote on there, I think she was right. Everything I touch is turning to gold. And so that was very hard for me to see in the moment. So if you guys could take anything, I would say just take a piece of paper, not right now, but take your piece of paper. Because then I don't want you guys to break eye contact with me. Take a piece of paper later and write down like, what would you want? And then because we're humans and this is the way we work, we're smarter than we give ourselves credit for. Our mind will find ways to get it. And you will, you got, whether it's on your steering wheel or whatever Jamie was saying, like you have to put it out there. You have to be able, something that Ed taught me was just like, I saw when Jamie was talking, did you guys see she closed her eyes? Like she was just doing that out of habit or what's it, muscle memory. Like she was probably picturing what she was saying. And so imagine just like closing your eyes and picturing like, what is the new house going to look like? What is it going to look like when you're on the field trip with your kid, when you're at the softball game, when you're having dinner, when you retire your dad, when you don't have candida anymore? It was so bad. And I'm just like, I'm not going to eat that cheeseburger. I'm going to feel so good. And so you have to be able to visualize these things. And then now I feel so much better. I was never depressed. It was just, I wasn't healthy. But being able to do that, it was an exercise and it was an action step. And if you look in the book, it's filled with action steps. It's my favorite part of it.
It's like if most people that don't have that environment, don't have the mentorship, like we told you to go to Dr. Kirk.
I needed it. Yes.
But what would they do?
They buy into it.
Hello.
Listen to me. The reason I wrote the book is because we are more unhappy as a nation than we've been in over 50 years. There's record antidepressant use, record alcoholism right now, especially among the females. Record suicide, record youth suicide. All the bads are on the rise, right? So,
and the more we talk about just that, the worse it gets.
but
Right.
Normally, if they don't have this environment, they would go to their friends and they talk about more negative stuff. They go to the doctor, they get on the medication. It's anyways, it's needed. Message is needed.
My answer is so short. I'm going to take it and then give Johanna and Jamie. The question is, what would I say to myself that was in a struggle?
Yeah, a time where you.
I would say, woman up, you big freaking pansy. I'm serious. No, really, 100%. I was just being a big pansy.
Yeah, okay, so it was what would you say to the one?
The question was, if you could travel back to a time where you felt so overwhelmed that you wanted to give up on your goals and dreams, what would you say to your past self?
It would probably be the time I was describing where I was like, I'm going to end up in the insane asylum. I would just say you don't have to do it all yourself. You really don't. And I felt like I did. And that's where it all went wrong. And so just reminding, like, you are still like loved, you are worthy, you are capable, and you are good, and you don't have to do it all yourself. And being, great in every area doesn't mean, you have to make your kid, like, I just want you to know now, I just pay for my kids to get lunch at school. And like at night, I just go to bed instead of sit and make 3 lunches, and those little things go a long way. Like that's just one of the things to streamline, and honestly, I learned so much of that from Jamie. Like, what are the things that you can delegate? And I really was like, I don't have to do every appointment myself. I don't have to, like, I think there's a whole chapter where Jamie talks about planning an event. And she's like, I thought I had to be in charge of every single detail of the event. And I realized I didn't have to, like letting go of things. And because once you realize your worth and your value isn't in those achievements, then you can. And you're like, oh, I am worthy of love and life just because of I'm a human being, So hope that helps somebody.
So when we say you can have it all, it doesn't mean you have to do it all. So I loved that comment, like learning how to set the boundaries. I have scripts you can email out for all for all those time suckers in your life, right? But I remember like would want to like bake the cookies for the thing, at the kids' school, but they like the Albertsons fresh baked cookies just as good, right? So if there's too much on your plate right now, you can take some off. And so when she talked about streamline, I have a course that's coming out called Streamline Your Life in 7 Days, How to Overcome the Overwhelm. The question was like, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and streamline every area of your life so that, because we have as women, especially, we tend to just put it on. If you're going to put something new on your plate, you got to be willing to take something off. Yeah. And set those boundaries. But for me, if I was to travel back in time and tell myself what I'm going through, the times that I was like about to quit, I would just be telling myself, hey, you're building your story. You're building your story. This is for your good. And this is building you to the person that's going to be able to help others through it, and just keep going because it's going to get really, really good. Right. And just, that type of encouragement, because we're all going to have those down times. And, hopefully you'll have people in your life that care about you, that you can, go to in those times. And if you don't, get a new group. Get a new group. Like, I think that associations are a big deal. We're lucky to have great people, but I remember a time where I didn't. And whenever something was going wrong, it was like misery loves company. And my friends would make me feel worse, right? You have a fight with your boyfriend, they're like, dump his, right? I'm like, okay, like this, nothing good. Like, when I was going through my really hardest times, I remember thinking I couldn't call my family members because they would tell me to quit. They would tell me, you don't need to do all that. And I was grateful that I had a really great association. We call it Mastermind Alliance in like the book Think and Grow Rich calls it a Mastermind Alliance, but good associations that will encourage your vision instead of feed that fear that you already have. I mean, we all have that little inner voice. And so I think associations are good. But if I told myself, I'd just be like, just keep going. Don't worry. That's good. It's a small thing to the giant that you're going to become. Like, you got to tell yourself, this is a small thing. We fret as women over tiny things. This is a small thing to a giant. I'm going to go out. I'm going to impact lives. I'm going to change millions of lives. Like this, let it go. Like I got really good at the singing in my head, the let it go, the Frozen. I have a daughter and she watched that thing like 10 times a day. It seemed like, but I had to I can't be a perfectionist. It's good enough not being perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I had an experience like with Johanna, like the same thing I was fretting about. I forgot the stupid stuffed animal for show and tell. And I'm like, oh, I'm such a bad mom. Right? Like, who cares? She's like kindergarten or something. But it's really such a small thing. But I remember I was with Daisy and we were talking and she's like, you're the best mom. And I'm like, okay, it comes from her. Yes. Like that's the only thing that matters is your relationship with your kids, relationship with your spouse, and the only person that else other than that I really care is what my Heavenly Father thinks about how I'm raising my kids and how I'm running my life. And that's it. And like, I don't care if, people are judging me or whatever, what I mean? I love what I'm doing. I love every part of it. I love, every aspect of it. And if I didn't, I would change it. You know what I mean? And like that. And I just think that most people settle, and life, I hate that word. It's my least favorite word. Life gives you exactly what you settle for. And my dad in Montana, like we grew up in poverty in that trailer on welfare, and he was in and out of work all the time, and he complained every single day. And I thought, why don't you just move? He'd break bones and he had fingers ripped off. He had a horrible job. And I'm like, why don't we go somewhere else where you can get a different job? But people just settle for what life gives them, and life will give you exactly what you settle for. It would also give you exactly what you fight for. But you gotta, one of my favorite quotes in the book is from Mark Twain, when he said, I can teach anyone how to get exactly what they want in life. I just can't find anybody who knows what they want. So when I said clarity earlier is your best friend, you got to figure out what you want. What if we had that, everything you touch turns to gold, or if I had a magic wand and I said, what would you do if money was no object? If you could, like, what cause would you like to donate to? What injustice would you like to correct? What pisses you off? What makes you emotional? What would you do for a member of your family that would make you so, so happy? Like taking your mom on a dream vacation or something. Figure out those things, feel that, get clarity on it, and you'll start to gravitate towards that and focus less on the now. You focus on the now, you stay exactly where you're at. That's most people, year after year. And it just builds up to be a life.
That was so good. Nobody let me forget to buy that 7-day course. I was looking for all the note takers in the front. I'm like, okay, I'm going to steal your notes right there because you've been taking a lot of notes. Awesome. So can we have one more round of applause for our panelists? They're so amazing. That was so good. I think we have enough time for maybe a couple of questions. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask? Come on. Yes.
Would you share that years ago you shared something that you would tell people who called you to do something else? You'd say, well, my husband doesn't let me.
My script. Okay. Yeah. My boundary setting scripts. I have a few. I have one for family. I think it's actually in that course. I get a script for family members because it's hard for them, right? Yes. Grace knows family members, and then like the school stuff or the kids stuff. And then what's the last one? Not church. No, it was family, teammates. Yeah. Your business colleagues, your business colleagues, your boss, those things. How to say no without feeling guilty. Because that's the whole reason that you have a hard time saying no, right, Dana? Is like, you just, yes comes out so fast. So it goes like this. I mean, they asked me one time to be the PTA president at my daughter's school. And my first, in my mind is like, hell no, I'm not going to do, no way, no chance. But I just said, oh, wow. I'm so honored that you would think of me in such an important role, right? In the leadership role. You know what? Let me talk to my partner or your spouse or whoever you want to say, and I will get back to you. I'll get back to you today. And then I just have an email shoots out, right? And it says, I'm so honored that you would think of me in this important role. Hey, if you want to do that, do that. To me, I didn't believe that being the PTA president would help my kids be more socially adjusted or learn better. It didn't. So someone else is probably just as good as me in that role. But so I said, I thank you again for thinking about me. I feel honored that you would think of me of such an important role. I talked to my spouse. He thinks I have too much on my plate, which is pretty much always true. So I'm not a liar, right? So I have to decline, but think of me throughout the year for any volunteer opportunities. I'd love to help out wherever I can. And it's the way that you don't have to be that face-to-face saying no to someone if you have a hard time saying no. And like I said, there's times that family members are going to come to you and they're having a hard thing, but you know what? You're having a hard thing too. You have a lot on your plate too. And you don't want to say no because you love these people, but there's other solutions out there and you know it for them than you being, they're being dependent on you. And so the script for the family would be just something like, listen, I love you. And I'm so sorry that you're having to have this harder thing right now, and then you tell them what's going on. Like, maybe my husband and I are going through a hard thing right now too, or I'm dealing with something with one of the kids that I didn't tell you about. It's too much on my plate right now, but here's what I think we could do. And you give them a solution. A lot of times they don't really need the solution or want the solution. They want you to commiserate with them, right? They want that misery loves company. And it goes away. You'll see it goes away. And I'm not saying to not be there. Of course you're going to be there, but you have to set boundaries because you have to take care of you.
You cannot help people from a position.
Yep. Is that your answer? Is that what you were looking for?
Exactly. I just need to hear one more time. I guess we'll probably be more for Jenna. You were a single mom. After having the conversation and prioritizing and explaining to a teenager how you're committed to doing the business for them and explaining the dream they have and the vision, and they're just negative all the time, no matter what. How do you? And that's true. But like both kids, even the 27-year-old, like, how do you get them to buy into your vision?
Qualify for Hawaii.
Jamie's house.
My kids are my kids were little. My kids are right now only 5 and 7. So when I started, they were like 2 and 4 or something like that. So they did. If you could pay a price now while your kids are little, you should do it. Cause then now, I mean, we by no means made it, but like we're living in what our dream life is right now. They don't remember any of that. But sometimes they do say, like today they were a little bummed because they wanted to stay with me. They couldn't because I'm here. And I said, look, guys, I'll take you tomorrow to Target and to Boba or to wherever they wanted. But I have to do this tonight. It's very important. Like, and my kids know, like what we do, we help people, we serve families. I'm like, it's not fair that I'm just here. Like, I mean, every day we can't go to Target. And their kids kind of think that like they're like this morning, Sophia's like, oh, what are we going to do fun today? I was like, I have to work, you know? So at some point, so I just explained to them, I think somebody said, like, I just explained to them, like, I have to help families. Like our family, we're so lucky. We're so blessed. We have blah, 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 blah. And I get to go to this, like, not everybody's like that. And so what I do is I enhance people's lives. I make it better. And don't you think they deserve that too, since you have it? And they're 5 and 7, but they get it. They're like, okay, yeah, I get it. You know? And I'm like, I'll take you to do X, Y, Z. But they're not always like that, just once in a while. And then I feel so bad, but I'm like, okay, tomorrow we're going to be together. So I don't know. I would just.
Maybe, yeah, I don't have teenagers, so I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a teenager or a little or a spouse. You could tell them all day long that you're doing this for them. If they don't feel like they are number one, it doesn't matter. Okay. So they have to know that. They have to know that. And you could tell them, and you should, like, I love you unconditionally. You know, you could rob the bank and I'll be visiting you in jail. I love you, right? Like, it doesn't matter. There's nothing that you could do that would make me stop loving you. And tomorrow I'm going to love you even more than today. They have to feel the unconditional love, and they have to feel like they're number one, period. So I've seen mostly the guys in the business, but they'll say, oh, I'm doing it for my spouse. And why doesn't she support me? And why doesn't she, you know, and I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, if she doesn't feel like she's number one. So that's why I said earlier with the balancing of the time, you know, your roles, you have lots of roles. You're a daughter, you're a mother, maybe you're preschool teacher, who knows? Like you have all these different roles. Well, you got to figure out what your main priority roles are in your life, and you got to make your priorities a priority. Right. And so if your husband is your priority, then he should feel like that. When he walks in the door, he should be like, you should light up. You know what I'm saying? If your kids come home from school, you should light up. Like they should feel like when they walk in the room that you are their priority, and they're not like on the phone, you know, like this, you know what I'm saying? So then the second thing is the communication. And there's a whole chapter in there about the kid stuff, like don't raise entitled children. You shouldn't be feeling guilty like you got to take them somewhere and buy them something, you know, but because got to read that. She's not there yet. But you see what I'm saying? So like the kids, we'll have family council every week, and they're equal members of this council planning, you know, our life. And they know, like when the team and the, you know, is coming over, or we're doing something for the business, that the pool that they have and the water slide and all the stuff that they have, that's because these guys are paying a price too. And I'll say, do you think it's fair that these guys are out there serving families, helping families? Shouldn't we be doing the same? Shouldn't we be doing more? And so I'll teach them service. I wanted, one of my goals was I wanted to be my kid's hero. I didn't want it to be whatever friggin' the media puts up of Miley Cyrus or whatever crap is up there. You know what I'm saying? And so working hard is not a bad thing. Serving others is a great thing. I want them to see that we're making a difference. You know what I'm saying? But it's all about communication. If you're just walking out the door every day and they don't know what's going on, you're just away from home. Right. So when we talk, like I have 4 kids and they are in activities, they're only in one each at a time, because I don't want to be, guys, we talked earlier about like the business and the balance. I believe that most people have a job, and everything revolves around that. And that's horrible. I think that the core unit is the family. The family is the most important. The job or the business or the career is just an extension of who you are, what you stand for, and it all should support the family. Does that make sense? So when we're making every decision as a family, they know what's going on with the business. They know there was a lot on my plate recently with the book launch and I'm moving out of state right now, next 2 weeks from now, or whatever it is. So there's packing up, there's a lot going on, right? I had a 6-7-year-old's birthday party yesterday. My daughter's having a farewell party tomorrow with all her teenage friends. And there's just a lot going on, you know what I mean? But we could talk about that and we celebrate the wins together. And we talk about the difference that we're making. We're talking about, look, our boys in Uganda. Look what they sent. He's going to college now. Look what he designed in graphic design class. And, so they're all heavily involved. I think it was Johanna that said it can overlap. It can, the business and stuff can overlap if you get them involved. And, they don't 100% know what I do, but they know we love it. And they know that they see the lives that are changing. They talked to Kai Hood in Hawaii. Kai Hood was 3 years old when his dad started in business with us and his mom. And so my kids grew up with him and he just turned 18 and he started in our business. He has full ride scholarships to pretty much any school he wants. He has a 4.8 GPA and he is a nationally ranked volleyball player. But he's like, I want to do business with my mom and dad. And they give him all these leadership scholarships because of being around this environment. You know what I mean? So my kids see that and I love it. But if you're not having the conversations, you know what I mean? And they're teenagers, so they're not going to want to have the conversations necessarily. They're not going to, you know what I mean? But you keep trying and you keep pouring on the love and they'll feel it. You understand? Like they might snob you, give you weird looks, like they might say really crazy things, right? Because they're teenagers and you just ignore the content and pour on the love. And that's, you know what I'm saying? You're getting caught up in the teenage drama. No big deal.
Alrighty, I think we can do one more, if there's any. No, going once, yes.
So obviously, I know, thank you so much for putting on this and asking the questions. We're so lucky to have the mentorship and be around you. What would you say to those who are online or in this room that maybe don't have access to leadership, they don't know where to find, especially like female to female? Where would you or how would you suggest finding that so that they are lucky us here as well?
If any of you guys want to answer too, but here's the thing. That's a myth. That's a limiting belief that you have that you believe is true, but it's not true. So if you guys didn't hear a question online, her question was, what if I don't have leadership? What if I don't have access to mentors? So a lot of people will tell themselves, well, I'm too small to reach out to this big mentor. Well, trust me, John Maxwell didn't call me. Ed Milet didn't say, hey, Jamie, I heard you joined our, it's not what happened. I reached out to them before I was probably deserved it. Right. So successful people, good ones, they want to, like when you get there, you have a desire to help other people kind of get where you're at. And so they will help you. Just don't waste their time. Like one of these girls said, don't waste their time. Like you're asking and then they tell you and then you do nothing with it. Like I just got there's a difference between 99% coachable and 100% coachable, right? Like I just said, okay, I want to be where they're at. I'm going to be coachable. But you do have access to mentorship. When I was just starting in business, who were my coaches? Like Napoleon Hill, he died a long time ago. But through books, through audio tapes, I turned off the news. I turned off the noise, the media, the negativity, and my car became like a library, an institution of self-development. I just started reading all these wonderful books by people that I admired in business and motherhood and strengthening families. And I just, started to personally grow that way. So you have access through that. But then if there is someone that you look up to as a role model in one of those, there's my 4 favorite F words, right? Faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I have mentors in each one of those. Not, you wouldn't go get financial advice from your personal trainer, right? You have different advice, different mentors and different coaches. And if I looked at them as a role model or a coach that I wanted to have, I would try to be in service to them. Think about like maybe you would send them call their assistant, ask them, what's his favorite like thing? Does he have a favorite bottle of wine? Does he have a favorite restaurant he likes to go to? Like, and then you send that to them and say, I admire you so much. You don't know this, but you've impacted my life so much from a distance. I applied this from your class here. I applied that from your class there. And here's what I've learned. And I hope that we get to meet someday, but I just wanted to thank you. He knows your name now. Maybe he even calls. I've had them call and say, hey, to their assistant, put that person on my schedule. Give her 10 minutes so I can answer her questions. So you reach out and, worst thing you could do is say no, no big deal. But I think a lot of people try to reach out to mentors and they've not even taken their classes or their courses or read their books or whatever. So there's a lot of resources out there for you to grow and have, like John Maxwell was my mentor from a distance for 20 years before he was my mentor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Really good.
Awesome. Yes, one more round of applause for our panelists. That was absolutely incredible. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
We've made the audiobook. My least favorite part of writing the book was the audiobook. But I thought it was going to be horrible, but it actually came out pretty good. It's not out yet on Audible because we are waiting for Ed Milet to record the foreword. He wrote the foreword. Yeah, it's on Audible. It's going to be on Audible. Yeah. So the audiobook will be out, but Ed Milet, I read the foreword and I was like trying to channel my inner Ed Milet. I just felt really weird reading the foreword that he wrote. So he was recording his book actually like a week or two ago, and he recorded the foreword. So we're just getting that edited and added, and it should be out in a couple weeks. Yeah. 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 It's kind of like what I talked about earlier with associations. It's what you put in. You're putting trash in, you're going to manifest trash. It's true. So there's right down here, Calabasas, up by the behind there, up by the Getty Center. There's a gated community. It's very, very rich, very expensive gated community, very luxury community. And it used to be a city dump. Years ago, it used to be a city dump. And I don't know how do you take a city dump that's piles and piles of trash for years and years and years and turn it into this beautiful luxury, very desirable, expensive neighborhood? Well, the first thing you do is you stop the trucks. You have to stop the trash. And so that's why you have to cut out the negative associations. Even if those negative people in your life are people that you love and you're doing it for, there needs to be at least an 18-month period of time where you're very focused on your vision and getting yourself to a position where you can believe it. It's possible. So you got to cut out the trash. You got to cut out the negative stuff. And unfortunately, just driving here today, you probably heard hundreds of negative messages. If you listen to the radio, you didn't, but you know what I mean? It's the media, the news, the TV, it's just so much stuff. For the first 5 years of my business, I didn't have a TV. I didn't have news is the worst of all. It just creates fear. I don't care which side of it you're on. It's all bad. It's, political election year, just cut yourself off of social media. And if you have people that you're following that are ranting or negative, even if you agree with them, unfriend them temporarily. I'm telling you, you have to stop the trash. You have to stop those and then replace it with even more of the good, the stuff that fuels your fire, increases your vision, those things. So, yeah.
Again, thank you so much, ladies, and thank you to everyone who came.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm going to hand it over to Jenna to close out.
Thank you. Amanda did such an amazing job. What she does is not easy to be able to ask questions and know what to ask and bounce ideas. So thank you guys for coming. We're going, make sure you guys take snacks because we're not taking any of that home. Take pictures with Jamie, get your book signed, purchase a book if you don't already have one. Obviously, I hope you got that message by now. But we also got these for you, Jamie. Some roses because we're so proud of you.
Thank you guys.
You know, I just want to really quickly say, wait, hold on, guys. I'm not done talking yet. Just 1 second. I'm so sorry. So, you know, Jamie, one thing I admire about Jamie is like, no one said this, but Jamie makes multiple 7 figures like per year. So like every 12 months. And so she didn't need to write a book to make money, to do all those things. She really did it from a selfless place to say, hey, this is what I've learned and this is what I went through. And this is how I'm going to help everybody. Like that's specifically this room and the people that we know. And so imagine what you're going to learn today. And then how I hope, you know, you spill this on to other people and you become the light in other people. And so the impact that you're making, you can't even measure. And so we're so excited and we want to support you in every way. Thank you for doing this. Those are from all of us here in this room. Thank you guys for coming.